This was the first time in 20 years that we were able to get rank for pay back into the contract. There are some issues that are things that we need to develop and work on to make it a smoother process, but it was a very successful process. Over 60% of the applicants that turned them in received 1 or 2 ranks, but we also had to follow what we had put into the contract. So there were some issues if you didn't have things that were signed or were missing that we're going to go through. One of the issues we ran into was organization. We didn't really assume that things would come in different formats and different styles. So one of the changes with Appendix G is that it is going to be required that you turn your portfolio in a certain format and in a 1-inch binder. And again, this is for the committee's benefit and also so that we don't miss things. We had some people submit things in accordion folders, legal binders, manila folders, 6-inch binders, 1-inch binders, 3-inch binders, in all kinds of different orders. There may have been things that may be missed if it's not in a certain order. So probably one of the biggest changes is that we are going to require a certain organization. And we also changed the date. The date for submission is February 1st, and that is because the post-tenure review process will be completed in January. And post-tenure review is one of the things we really didn't see as something that could be problematic, but it was. We assumed that most people that were applying had already been through post-tenure review because you need to have been here 15 years. But the way that post-tenure review is set up is by date of hire. We erroneously, as a union, assumed that the college was going to take 300 employees, divide them by 5, and then there would be 60 people that would go through post-tenure review each year. The college administration did it by year of hire. So it's very lopsided. There are years when there might be 80 people going through or 15 or 20 people going through. So that's one of the changes that we have. So if you are going through post-tenure review this year, you will receive your letter prior to having to submit. If you are not, you have the full remainder of the fall semester to get together your post-tenure review documents and make sure that they're included in your portfolio submission. So if you look at the handout, we want a table of contents and have a table of contents in a specific order. The first thing will be Appendix G. The only thing you're required to fill out in the appendix is Section 1. So if you look at the appendix, which is the next page, everything that I have highlighted on the overhead is what you will fill out. You'll fill in your name, your college ID, your rank, the rank you are requesting, and if you're requesting 2 ranks, you'll put both ranks into the 2 ranks that you're requesting, and then sign the form and put a date of submission, but no later than February 1st, meaning that it needs to be received, the full portfolio, by the Vice President's office by February 1st. So you can turn them in as early as you'd like. She'll begin accepting them this fall, but no later than February 1st. Also, you'll put the names of your 2 peer recommendations, and by contract, these need to be faculty members. So any 2 faculty members can give you a recommendation. We did have some faculty that didn't sign the form, and contractually it says you must sign it. So those are, some people that will be resubmitting. Unfortunately, the way we write things has to be enforced. What'll follow your appendix are your satisfactory evaluations for 5 years prior to applying for rank or waivers when not observed. This is another area that we had some issues. You are required as a faculty member to make sure you are absorbed or you have a waiver. There's a form that your dean will sign. Some campuses have been very fortunate to have the same dean for 5-6 years. I won't go as far as 10 because I don't think we have any that have had the same dean for 10 on the AA or AS side of the house. But by contract, you either have an evaluation or you have a waiver. And you as a faculty member are responsible to make sure that's in your file. Unfortunately, we had some faculty that just sent a letter that said, my dean is new, I don't have any faculty evaluations. So again, the college, because this is something we're being paid to put together for exemplary and continuing contributions, is going to follow what we have in the contract. And it says you're required to have those 5 evaluations in there. So make sure that you either have evaluations, or if you don't, you can have waivers. Those can be done retroactively. Evaluations cannot. They can't go back and create evaluations for you. But if you go and you check your personnel file and you don't have evaluations for a certain time period, your dean can sign an evaluation. In the contract, it states the lack of an observation is a satisfactory evaluation period, and it's just something that they'll sign for you. So that was another major issue. Those are the things that are going to be in the front of your portfolio. If they're not there, your portfolio is not going to be evaluated. So one of the things we're doing is we're moving these to the front. This is basically going to be where people will stop on the committee if they're not there, because they can't evaluate your portfolio if you're missing items. That's what we have in the contract. This is a contract year, so we can improve on the rank process in the future, but for 2019, this will be what will move forward for the committee. After that, you're going to have your letters from your peers. Those don't have to be 3, 4, 5-page letters. We're just looking that you have peer recommendations that say they're recommending you. So they don't have to be exhaustive of all your contributions, the things that you've done. They can be, but we had a number of people ask, what should peers write for us? It needs to say they're recommending you for the rank. In whatever rank you are applying for, and that, of course, they personally know you, is something else that we would like to see in the letters.
And we don't want character references.
Yes, we don't need character references. We did receive some that were literally character references. Again, it's just a letter of recommendation. After that is the section, when you tab it, that's going to have your documented evidence of significant contributions in the following areas. You write your own personal narrative of 1,000 words that explains what you've done that you consider to be continuing contributions that are significant and or exemplary. What you need to make sure that you do is to cover the period of time that you're applying for. So if you've been here 20 years and you're applying for 2 ranks at once, you need to state the years that you're covering. So if you're covering 2010 to 2015 and you're just applying for 1 rank, but not including 16, 17, you need to state during 2010 to 2015, I did this in each of the areas. You have to submit contributions for every area. That's a contractual requirement. There was a misconception that you could just submit 1 area and say I'm exemplary in this 1 area. We are required at the end of each year on our end of the year term to say we've done the minimum contributions, but the committee will decide what is significant and what is exemplary. So you want to make sure that you have contributions in each area and that they cover the minimum time period. Some of the things that we ran into as committee members is people had great narratives of what they did, but it didn't say I did this for a 5-year period or a 10-year period. And we couldn't make a judgment call and say, well, we assume that they started this 10 years ago and they did it for 10 years and they're applying for professor, or that they did it for 5 years and they're applying for associate. We couldn't make that determination, so we need to make sure that you include a very specific narrative. Now, to help you with it, what we've decided is that in each area, we'd like you to list the time in chronological order. So please make sure that when you're talking about contributions to the college and educational committees, you start with as far back as you're going to go. So again, if you're applying for professor, you're going to start with a 10-year period and say for 10 years, these are the contributions I made to the college or educational committees, and state I did it in 2010, 2011, 2012. Be very specific that you're covering the time needed so that the committee can make a decision on what you've covered for that time period. Same thing for contributions to the department, the college, or the profession. And again, these should be things that you're doing continuously at a significant level minimum. And we'll get into the difference between significant and just standard contributions and exemplary in a few minutes, but you want to make sure that you put in selected things that support that documentation. So you don't have to, like in your tenure portfolio, have signed minutes from different committees. We don't really consider that significant. You might have a narrative that you worked on a project for a committee, and then you can include minutes, but you don't have to have them signed by someone. They need to be selected documentation that you choose that supports what you consider to be significant or exemplary. The professional development activities, everyone is required to do a minimum of 10 hours, and that 10 hours may or may not be significant. So it really depends on what you're doing for professional development. You know, the expectation is that you're doing things that are above and beyond the minimum expectations for tenure. So going to conferences and presenting at conferences, working in the committees as a leader in that committee, maybe even professional development, taking something you learn at CITT and then implementing it into your classroom. This means going beyond just attending professional development workshops for the minimum period. Contributions to community groups or projects. One of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you some examples of what we consider community projects that are contributions, significant contributions, and exemplary. The college would like to see things that actually you're doing in these groups that enhance either the image of the college, your professional image, or benefit students. So for example, since 2008, I've been a member of the Gasparilla Film Festival. I go there and I volunteer. That, in my opinion, is just a contribution. It's something that I do. For that to be significant, 5 years ago, I started having students volunteer so they get a better expectation of film. I have students interact with people in the community, and I have students learn more about the film festival, and I still volunteer. For me, I would interpret that as something that is significant. Exemplary, in the last 3 years, we've been able to establish a scholarship that was matched by a foundation in the community. So now the students volunteer. The students go out there, they work at the Gasparilla Film Festival. We judge high school films, and then someone in the high school area receives a scholarship from HCC that's matched by the foundation and matched by a private donor. That's just an example. Unfortunately, it's still going to come down to the committee is going to read it and say, is this just a contribution that you're expected to do as a faculty member, or is this something that could be considered significant by both the committee, the faculty, and the administration, or is this something that is really above and beyond, but the expectation is that it does tie back to the college? These are areas that are required by the state as post-tenure. So you're supposed to be working in college committees and educational groups. You're supposed to be making contributions to the college and the professor. You're supposed to be participating in professional development and participating in community groups or projects. One of the things that we've added is yes or no, because we want to make sure that if you get feedback, you know where that feedback is. The original form only had one yes, one no. So we do realize that that was a mistake on our part for not having foresight to say, well, nobody is going to know whether they need to put work in educational committees, the department, the profession, the community. So we've added in yes, no. So when the committee goes through it, it's going to be evaluated by 3 committee members. So 2 committee members will review it. If it's all yeses, it doesn't go to a 3rd committee member. If it's a yes and a no, it goes to a 3rd committee member. And then what we also did was we had the entire committee review the portfolios that were no's to make sure that either something was missing or that the original 2 people that reviewed it, or in the case of a 3rd person, did agree that it was a yes or no in one or more fields. What I've included in here is when we went to the administration and argued, what we gave them is everything that you see at the end of this piece that says rationale for rank promotion for 2016 to 2019. These are the things that got the administration to agree to a rank system. We went to the 9th hour and literally rank was not on the table as a approval for economics. The college was like, it just doesn't look strict enough. We're afraid you're going to just rubber stamp people. you're just going to give them step bonuses without anything significant. So we had a special meeting on the eBoard campus that 5 administrators came to, the full bargaining team as well as other members were there, and we said, these are the things that people are doing now that we consider to be significant and or exemplary, and we asked faculty to send it in. So everything that you see in these pieces are things that people sent us that we agreed were contributions that were significant. So people that volunteered to work on SB 1720. When our prep programs were basically changed from mandatory to voluntary programs, we had many courses that needed to be revised. We had requirements for testing that needed to be adjusted. And all of this was voluntary. As far as I know, I didn't get a stipend, and I don't think anybody received a stipend for it. So this was something that we considered significant, and for the leaders that went to the state workshops that helped redesign it, those would be things that were considered exemplary. Now, of course, everything doesn't have to be academic, so we have other things that are in here. We have speech faculty that volunteer to review students who are competing to be the commencement speaker. They get together, there's no supplement. There's an expectation that they're trying to make sure that our student representatives are the ideal commencement speakers that work through and make different presentations to other students. We have things in here like the QEP, the guitar series. These should be things that you're not receiving a supplement for. So we received a large number of portfolios that talked about being a program manager and said, I'm a program manager, I do program manager things. But we couldn't tell in there, well, what is significant that you're doing that's above and beyond program manager? So of course now it's department chair or division chair. If you're receiving a supplement for it, then that would be considered a contractual obligation and not something that you should include in your portfolio unless it's above and beyond what you're getting paid for.